Okay, recording. Okay, welcome everybody. This is Lauren Brewer. Lauren currently is working at High Point University. And Lauren, tell me again exactly what your title is. It's long.
Yes, it's long and it's complicated. The head of reference services librarian.
Yes, yes. And in Lauren's experience, so she got both her undergraduate degree and her graduate degree from UNCG. So she's a, what do we call that, a double Spartan.
Yes.
And a lot of her experience has been with zines and their usage in libraries. And I think I've mentioned that she and I worked together previously, so I'm very excited to have her here. So
Yes.
that's my official introduction.
Well, thank you. I'm super excited to be able to talk to y'all tonight. I am just going to talk a little bit about, kind of my path to academic librarianship and talk a little bit about what I do in my current role and how I guess some aspects of librarianship that I kind of discovered maybe a bit haphazardly have really become a core part of my identity as a librarian. Um, so, like Becky said, I'm the head of reference services librarian at High Point University, and I've been there for exactly 2 months today. So, not very long. And like we were, talking about kind of before the talk started. I kind of, have had a difficult time like adjusting to the position, just in the sense of it's a new job, so there's tons of things to do, and that's why maybe this talk is a little bit not as polished as I would normally like. But and I want to talk a little bit more about kind of dealing with this onboarding and starting a new job as an academic librarian in a little bit. But excuse me. So, um, I get the question a lot, as I'm sure like many of y'all do. That's kind of like, well, what made you decide to become a librarian, or what made you decide to go to graduate school and get your master's to become a librarian? And um, for me, really, it started. Even if I didn't know it at the time, it started when I was getting my bachelor's degree in women's and gender studies at UNCG. And I, I knew that I wasn't interested in kind of continuing to pursue that and like, getting a PhD and trying to become a professor. Um, but I knew that I really enjoyed academia, and I um, for 3 of the 4 years of my undergraduate degree, I worked for UNCG's ITS department as a student employee, working mostly in the ITS Super Lab in Jackson Library. And so I was spending a lot of time in the library. I was, you know, doing a lot of these kind of just desk duties that many of us perform, and public service roles in the library, right? So, like helping students with technology, fixing like Microsoft Word formatting, receiving their rage when like the computer would shut off, which thankfully didn't happen that often. Um, Refilling the printer, helping students print. And also I was doing some very basic like, reference work, right? So it would be like, hey, I need to find an article, like what do you know where I should look? kind of that homework help type stuff. And it was really rewarding to me. I mean, I never thought of myself necessarily as like a extrovert or someone that's really good at customer service or even someone that enjoyed customer service, but I found that being able, to help other students was something that came pretty easily to me and that I, had a lot of practice doing. It was awesome. And also, my previous customer service roles like dealt with like handling money and selling stuff, which I didn't enjoy, but I felt like, working in Jackson in the super lab was kind of like the good parts of customer service work, right? And then when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do after undergrad, I found out about the LIS program and did a bunch of reading and realized that wow, this is very similar to the work that I'm doing in the super lab in a lot of ways. So I was like, okay, I think I'm interested in this and I want to do it. And I also, before I started the program, I kind of conceptualized it as I expected it to be very theory based, right? Which is, probably fortunately not the case, but I had worked with theories and frameworks as an undergraduate, and I was very curious about how librarians and how um, academic libraries in particular um, play a role in the politics of knowledge production and how, what role do libraries and librarians play as kind of agents of adding legitimacy to texts and sources, and also delegitimizing sources. So I was like, okay, I'm really interested in this. I'm expecting this to be very like theory based, similar to my undergraduate work. And it wasn't, but I, went through library school and I was able to kind of um, do some internships. And I certainly want to talk about how certain aspects of my identity have given me kind of a leg up in um, being able to, continue to be a librarian and be employed as a librarian. But I think that really started with, kind of my ability to have access to internships in graduate school because I went to graduate school right out of undergrad as a 23-year-old. I, wasn't working full time and I was able to, go to school and work and earn money via internships. So, um, one of those internships that you know, I think all of them really, were instrumental in helping me kind of develop my professional identity. But the most, I think, impactful in kind of charting the course of um, what I wanted to do as an academic librarian was an internship I did with the Sally Bingham Center at Duke University's Rubenstein Special Collections Library. The Sally Bingham Center for Women's History and Culture is, like I said, a part of the Special Collections Library at Duke, but their materials um, and archival collections are focused on women's history and culture, and they have a really large zine collection. And zines, I brought some with me to show you, but you know, if you're not familiar with zines, like people will often say that they're short for magazines, but basically they're these like ephemeral pamphlets that people, you can kind of publish. They can be collective works, and they can be about anything. A lot of times they're printed, photocopied, very kind of like DIY punk style ways of publishing yourself, or others, but typically it's more of like a self-publishing thing. But anyway, so the Bingham Center had a zine collection, and part of my internship was working with Kelly Wooten, the one of the archivists and librarians there at the Bingham Center, to do instruction based on mostly undergraduate students utilizing the Bingham Center's special collections materials. And through Kelly and my experience at the Bingham Center, I realized, I love working with zines. I had kind of gotten into them through like music when I was a teenager, but this is the first time I had really seen them in the context of librarianship and scholarship, and also through the lens of kind of personal expression versus just seeing them as like music reviews or like music promo type stuff. So I was like, oh my gosh, zines can be about anything, and I can be a zine librarian and teach with zines. And I've collected like a bibliography, a recommended reading list, but one of the first items on that is Feminist, Pedagogy for Library Instruction by Maria Icardi, which is like probably the one professional librarian literature book that just changed my life. Kelly let me borrow it and read it, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this really ties in my interest in things I studied in undergraduate in women's and gender studies. So stuff like feminist care ethics and critical theory. And I can bring these things into my professional practice as a librarian, which is not really kind of something I had connected the dots with before reading this book. So that's when I really kind of started to think, okay, I am interested in being an instruction librarian if it can be like this, if I can make it, what I want it to be. Even though I had never really considered myself interested in teaching, I had never, enjoyed public speaking. But I was like, if I can make the teaching I do as a librarian even somewhat like this, and I can work to, decenter myself in the classroom and help students really use these resources versus kind of just the typical, um, one shot database demo that so many of us kind of have to do because either that's what's expected, or that's what faculty are requesting. If I can step outside of that, then yeah, like I am interested in instruction librarianship. So that internship was life changing. It also kind of showed me I did not want to be an archivist. I am not, I guess, detail oriented enough. There wasn't enough human interaction, which is also helpful, right? Like being in a situation and being able to kind of know that you don't like a certain thing without kind of saying, well, now, I have to find another job or whatever. So, um, after graduation and kind of applying for jobs and working in my first full-time role as the reference and instruction librarian at Greensboro College, which is where I met Becky, I being able to kind of actually step into the classroom and work with students really was how I was able to solidify, like, okay, I want to, be an academic instruction librarian. And it was, but it was a difficult process, right? Like, keep in mind, like I said, I am not a great public speaker, and I really, never thought of myself as someone that would enjoy like speaking to a group ever. And when I started at Greensboro College, I had done, you know, library instruction in my internships, and I had done it in a previous part-time position as well. But um, in the role at Greensboro College, I was really, in the classroom. I was able to kind of do really whatever I wanted when it came to um, achieving, specific like student learning outcomes. It's like as long as I could, you know, try to attain, to impart some of this knowledge into students in a way that, is not just standing up there lecturing, because that doesn't work, right? Like as long as I'm kind of attempting to um I don't know, just like share this information and empower students to use the library, like, and making a good faith effort in that, I can really do what I want. So I, it took me so much trial and error. And I think that's something that, maybe people do talk about it, but it's not something that I recalled really ever hearing anyone say, is that, you're going to have classes where you like just look back on it, or even in the middle of the class, right? And you're just like, oh my gosh, like this is so bad. Like I'm doing such a bad job. Like this is, these students hate this. They think that I am like the most boring person. This is going to like deter them from the library. You have those moments. And I thought because I was experiencing that, I was like, oh my gosh, like, full imposter syndrome. Like, I'm a terrible instruction librarian. I shouldn't be allowed in the classroom, those kinds of things. And, um, but slowly I was able to think, like, okay, what has gone well? And I started building, um, what I now realize is a reflective professional practice. And that's another kind of life-changing book that I read, called Becoming a Reflective Librarian and Teacher, by, I have to look at my book list. I'm sorry. I just want to tell you all the right thing. Um, yeah, Becoming a Reflective Librarian and Teacher by Michelle Reel. And um, I started, you know, sitting down and making time to um, build this reflective practice that I've kind of incorporated to all aspects of my professional life. But I started just with um, my work as an instruction librarian. So I would kind of sit down and reflect about, okay, what are the outcomes that we're trying to achieve? How am I gonna um like get students to achieve these outcomes? And then afterwards, which I think is kind of the most important piece, is really sitting down and thinking like, okay, what went well, what didn't, why? And at least for me, I found that, when I have a session and I'm just like, that was kind of off, um, there's something there that was weird, but I don't know what it is. That is kind of a kind of like a little exclamation mark, like, okay, something is going on with this class, whether it's like the planning process or, you know, something completely out of my control, or um, something not related to the class at all. Like maybe I just needed like an extra cup of coffee or something. But I found that by making myself have this time to sit down and reflect on pretty much every session I do, like it kind of made me feel like, okay, I can actually do this. Um, and I think it really helped me grow in my practice of teaching. It helped me grow in my comfort in front of the classroom. And it helped me explore different ways of doing information literacy instruction that, um, of course, some were horrible failures, but I've done some like really awesome sessions with students that now I know, okay, maybe I can do this with another group sometime. And it, yeah, I would say that like those kind of two pieces, right? The intersection of bringing in these ideas of critical theory and critical pedagogy, as well as engaging in reflective personal practice for myself. Um, if I wasn't able to kind of do these things, I don't know that I would be able to work in the roles that I, the role that I'm in now, and also, kind of the roles that I would seek out. And I think all of that being said, right? Because that's the typical like, how I found myself, in my professional identity. That's kind of that story that we, all kind of hear is very common, especially when people are doing like career focused talks like this. But I think it's so important to acknowledge like the aspects of my life and my identity that have given me such like a privileged position in our field. So I mean, first of all, like I said, with the internships, I had access to, um, places to live, like student accommodations, living with my parents for a while where I could take these part-time internships. Um, I, didn't have to tend to anyone other than myself, right? And so I had that ability to kind of access these internships when others um, wouldn't have. I have, you know, the ability to take lower paying jobs. My first position outside of library school was a part time evening librarian position. And then we all know that librarian pay is not great, but I was able to accept positions that, paid low because I have, a house to live in, I have a partner that I combine finances with, I'm, financially comfortable otherwise. Um, and also, I think really the core of it, which comes into play, I think, with all types of librarianship, but specifically with academic librarianship, is that when I was an undergraduate, I looked around the library and the librarians looked like me. I felt represented in the library. I didn't feel like an outsider. And that is a variety of factors, like me being a white cis woman. it also, even having kind of the access to attend college, right? And coming from an educated family, I felt comfortable in an academic library environment. And, I think it's kind of easy to see, like, if someone is uncomfortable in that environment, if they have that sense of not fitting in or not feeling like they belong, it's so much less likely that they're going to pursue that as a profession. And, of course, these are just like a few of the things, but they're what really kind of stuck out to me as I was like writing and preparing for this talk, that I think need to be acknowledged when we talk about librarianship, and we talk about, how I came to, be in the place that I am now. And I was gonna kind of try to like tie that into zines, but I feel like my notes are not robust enough to remind me how I was gonna really tie that into zines. But um, you know, working with zines, and especially being able to work with students making zines, has helped me to reflect on my, access to these kinds of things that position me in a better off place in librarianship and inside of higher ed too. um my favorite zine right now, I cannot pick a favorite. I do love like um these these zines by um um excuse me, Cosima stores. And they're, I don't know if this is flipped, but they're about kind of teaching and teaching with zines. And she, like, I believe that she's like at least when she made these, because these are from like 2017 and 2018, she's some sort of like PhD student in education, I think in Virginia. And I saw her at like a zine fest, and I was like, oh my gosh, your zines are the best. Like, these are so cool. And also, I love the Reserve and Renew. It's like the LIS mental health zine. This is issue 4. And currently, I'm not involved in this project. I just think it's really cool. So I'm not trying to shill anything other than from my like love. But they're accepting submissions for issue 5. And um, I think submissions are due like at the end of this year. So like December 31st, I think. And I see some questions in the chat. Thank you for asking questions. Um, I have some, well, I created this kind of document to share with y'all, with my bibliography and some links. And there is a link to zinelibraries.info, which is kind of the hub for just zine librarianship. And there's also a really active listserv, which I linked in that document, that I can share with y'all in a second. Oh, my laptop's falling down. Sorry. And what was I going to say? But I would recommend the listserv right now, that listserv about zine librarianship in general. But the website is has a lot of good stuff too. But oh my gosh, the zine librarian community is just like the coolest people I have ever met. And there's just like so many cool things. And I think there's a lot of stuff that people can do with zines in any type of librarianship. I feel like that's all I have. went through that so fast. I think it was because I was like very, very nervous and felt ill prepared. Um, but I wanted, since, you know, y'all have now heard my disdain for kind of sitting here and just talking, I wanted to know, like, are there any um, things you'd like me to talk about? Any questions that I can answer?
So first of all, I think timing wise, it was perfect. So you
Oh,
didn't go
nice.
fast. I thought it was great. And I can't wait to see your bibliography. When you said you made a list, I was like, do we get that list?" I'm like,
Yes.
I'm getting that list.
Here, I can I was like, I've been exploring kind of like coding stuff. And so I created this because the site uses Markdown. So it should just be um, just like a little document with links. Oh my gosh, yes. They would be a great idea for for YA. Oh my gosh, yes. When I did the zine I did a zine freshman seminar class at my previous position. And, you know, a lot of those students are like 18-year-olds, maybe some younger. And it was, it worked really well with them. So I think even, you know, for younger, um, I was going to say students, but younger patrons, it would be awesome. In terms of internships that I did during my MLIS, so I took 3 years to complete it because I did it part time. Mostly, I think I'm like, I don't know why I did that. Maybe like because of laziness, but I did I did one internship with the um, I don't know the new name of it, but the reference department in Jackson, ROI. And then I also did the Bingham Center internship, and then I did um, maybe more of like a volunteer position with the Women's and Gender Studies departmental library at UNCG, and they also had a bunch of zines. And I need to, you know, check in with them and see if they have like a bigger zine collection. But um, they have a cool little departmental library over there.
So what is it like going from the small academic library to the much larger academic library? I know that's a very recent change for you, but
Well, I mean, you know, it's because in my previous position, GC is like 1,000 students, and HPU is like, I would say like 6,000. Oh, yes, I was going to talk about onboarding. Oh my gosh. Um, and this kind of, that really plays into that. So thank you. But I I was like, oh, you know, I'm used to kind of attending UNCG. Like, these are both small schools, but just the change from 1,000 to 6,000 is enormous. And I also think that, you know, HPU is for kind of small liberal arts private schools is well funded. So it has a pretty big library. I think the biggest change was going from a library staff of well, I was going to say 3.5, but that's just because it's a part-time person, not half a person. But so 4 to, I think there's 24 at the HPU libraries, including part-time folks. And so that has been the hardest part, because I feel like in libraries we work so closely with our colleagues, right? So, you know, I'm not used to kind of maintaining relationships and communications with this many people. And so that, I would say, has been the biggest change. And also there's just a lot more chats, just a greater volume of chat questions. And in terms of onboarding, I think the really the thing that stunned me kind of the most is, and this may not, you know, be that applicable, but I had worked at Greensboro College for 4 years, a little over 4 years when I left. And I was like, okay, you know, getting this job, it is a big deal. I'm excited about it. But, you know, I mean, I've been working as a librarian at a college, you know, and I was very much expecting kind of to just be able to start and like work at the same level that I had been kind of working at. And that was really difficult for me. I was very, you know, I was kind of expecting to just like get everything right away and to, I don't know, somehow just have all this institutional knowledge that one needs. I don't know. I didn't think about it, obviously. So um having it was really a difficult transition to me, that for me, that I was not prepared for at all. And so I wanted to share my experience changing jobs, you know, starting a new job, just to say that I think it is so normal to feel that way. Like it's, you know, if the transition is not easy, then it's okay, because I don't think it's easy for most people.
Lauren, I had a question. I'm glad that you brought up the Feminist Pedagogy book. I haven't read that one, and I'm slowly making my way through Feminist Reference Desk, which
Oh,
I've
it's
been
so
really
good.
enjoying. So good. But I was actually thinking towards the beginning when you were talking about, I think like students, if there were computer issues or just like people getting angry or I don't know, like getting different things happening. And thinking about, I think it's the first chapter in Feminist Reference Desk that talks about like the emotional labor of providing reference services and making sure that you are like not just completely a blank slate or something when you're working with people, answering questions. So like, I guess my first question is about how do you like handle things so that you don't get so almost like invested and then have like nothing left for yourself,
Right.
with like the emotional labor. And then two, you were talking about reference chat services earlier. Also, hi, Kat.
This is cornbread.
And hello. And then like how you were talking about just now, like the growth in chat services or chat messages that you've had recently. So like, how do you handle that too?
Yeah, those are excellent questions. Thank you. And so, you know, that is something that I struggle with, because on one hand, I see the value in um, you know, providing or thinking about reference services and interpersonal interactions from um, this feminist care ethics framework, where, you know, very simplified, this idea that um, roles in the workplace that have been feminized, which, you know, librarianship is definitely one of them. These kind of customer service roles are often devalued because of the care work they provide. And to kind of recontextualize like the idea of care work as important and valuable. So I try to think about those interactions through that framework and remind myself, like, even though, you know, I've helped like students, you know, like let's say I've had a 2-hour reference desk shift, and um all like 99% of my questions have been helping with the printer. I To those students, it's just one interaction, and it is, you know, I can see with some of them, you know, the appreciation for what I do. And even if they don't express that, I try to remember that like helping them is important. Like this care work is important and should be valued. Um, but on the other hand, I try to not let that get into like kind of blaming myself or feeling guilty for being exhausted. And I think it's also important to kind of keep in mind that because care work is valuable, it's also hard and it's tiring and it's hard work. Um, and it's especially hard when, you know, you're the one that is on the job and has to kind of provide this as a part of your employment, right? So um I guess I try to be gentle with myself and say like, okay, well, you know, I feel like crap, but maybe that's because I've been, you know, talking to people and kind of running around and, you know, processing these emotions of these stressed students. Um, and even though my brain is telling me, oh, I didn't get anything done on my desk shift that I wanted to get done, I did a ton of stuff, and it's okay that I'm tired. Like, I worked hard. Um, and I hate that answer because it really puts kind of the pressure on, you know, the person that is tired to self-soothe and not like address the like institutional and systemic like reasons why this is such a struggle for so many people. But that's just kind of how I cope with it, I guess, is the best answer. And I'm hoping that in my role as the person that organizes and is in charge of reference services, I can kind of look at ways to, I don't know, like diffuse some of this burden, to um, maybe rethink how reference services are provided, you know, do some of that kind of structural stuff. Um, but I'm not sure right now how I can do that. And oh, and chats. And oh my gosh, chats are it's like constant, which is cool because, you know, you want, it's like, I feel like for a lot of people that use chat services, they're not like, if they weren't able to use chat right then to ask that question, they weren't going to ask that question. So at what we currently do in my role is that pretty much everyone is on chat. We're kind of trying to use it as like a way to also communicate with one another, especially because at HPU there are 3 separate like HPU libraries, and but that also kind of allows everyone, even staff that are not kind of in the public services or reference department umbrella, it allows them to get online and to kind of, you know, if they just catch like a chat and answer it, like it relieves that kind of burden for everyone else. And during the day, like the normal work day, which is when I'm typically on chat, there's so many people online that it's easily spread out.
Thank you so much. That was so helpful.
Oh, great. And I don't know if it's like weird to say this, but if anyone, you know, if any one of you, you know, are interested in like ever talking more about kind of some of these, um, I don't know, like philosophical theory based like integrations with librarianship, it's something that I'm super interested in. And I would talk about it, you know, all day, every day. So just, you know, you could send me an email or whatever. And it also doesn't have to be about that too. Like that's why I was kind of excited to do this talk, is that I wanted to maybe like put myself out there a little bit as a resource for, um, you know, MLIS students, people, just anyone really.
I'll probably take you up on that.
Yeah.
I think my mouse is dying. I've been trying to unmute myself. I'm like, I can't do it. I do think, Lauren, that the Dr. Brewer, who's over the LISSA, you know, the Alumni Association, is trying hard to kind of bridge the alumni, current students, you know, kind of bring people together more. So
Yeah.
I might pass your name on to her as
Yeah.
somebody who has said, yeah, I'd like to help.
Yeah. I've always thought about different ways to do it, but I just never really reached out to anyone. But then
Yeah.
it was easy because I would just, you know, walk across the little hallway and say, "Hey, Becky," you
Yeah,
know.
that's right. Yeah. Well, thank you tonight for, does anybody have more questions? Like jump in if you do, but I really appreciate that you joined us tonight, because I know it's fall break for everybody, including you, and
Yeah.
it's a Tuesday night, but it was good to see cornbread on the screen.
Yes.
Oh,
Well, thank you so much. And thank you. I feel like I should have prepared more, but
this was awesome. This was awesome.
okay, good. And
Yeah.
yeah, if anyone feel free to reach out to me if you ever want to talk about anything. Yeah, thank you so much. This was really fun, and it was nice to meet all of you.
Thank you, Lauren. I'm sure I'll talk to you soon.
Yes, that sounds good.
Good night, everybody.
Thank
All
you,
right, bye
Lauren.
y'all. Thank you again.